Welcome to Lesson 2 in the AI Communications course. We are going to jump right into it. So this lesson is all about how to train AI to understand and write in your brand voice. You're going to get amazing results and understand how to achieve those results in this lesson. So first of all, the difference between good and great AI content is one thing. Remember this. This is critical. Training data. If you're surprised that the answer is not prompting, you are not alone. I actually worked in AI for over a year until I learned this. I believed that the difference between good and great was merely a good prompt. That's what everyone tells us, right? No, it's actually training data. If you feed your AI the correct training data, the correct source of data, then you become unstoppable. And what you're able to do is incredible. It's going to be super aligned with your voice. It's going to be accurate to what you and your ideas contain. And it's going to give you the opposite of generic, crappy content. So remember this. This is by far one of the most important things you've learned yet in the AI Comms course. That the difference between good and great AI is training data. Garbage in, garbage out. Great stuff in, great stuff out. But it's not prompting. It's data. So most people get this wrong. The first part of this is they use AI out of the box. What do I mean by that? They do not use any training data whatsoever. They just prompt it, which leads me to my second piece. This is when you use very generic prompts. Maybe you think you've done a thorough job, but really it's still a generic prompt and you're going to get generic results. There's no personality and there's no brand voice. So it comes down to this. There's two types of AI users, and I want you to be the second type. Instead of just a prompt engineer, which is where you work harder and harder and you become better and better at prompting, become a data trainer. Work smarter, not harder. When you work smarter, the world opens up. You have a 25x advantage. You have a team of copywriters. Actually, your AI becomes better than a team of copywriters. So your best content is actually your best training data. If you have published content and it lives on the web and you have any kind of performance on any of that content, better than, 3 likes, let's say you had a hit, that's your best training data. Now, this goes completely in the trash if you don't like anything you've published or if you're brand new. So other pieces of what makes great training data is not just a high-performing piece of content, although that is the most critical piece of good training data. If it hasn't performed, then you actually have no data that means that that's great training data. If it didn't perform, how do you know that it's going to produce high-performing content out of your AI? The second piece of this is your own unique voice patterns. This is critical. How you talk, how you write. Thirdly, winning frameworks. If you're a great copywriter, if you've studied copy, if you have developed or learned great copywriting frameworks, if this sounds like alien language, swipe ours. We have a folder of training data attached to this lesson that is worth untold amounts. Because once you upload it to your AI, that could be GPT, that could be Claude, once you upload it to your AI, you instantly have an amazing copywriter for LinkedIn posts, Facebook posts, tweets, YouTube descriptions, emails, a book, on and on. So swipe our data. It's there. I created it. Some of it I didn't create myself. I studied high-performing content, and that's where some of it comes from. Don't reinvent the wheel. I didn't. You shouldn't. That's a waste of time. So in the training process is to collect these wins, whether it's our training data, you're perfectly welcome to use that, or it's your specific highly successful content hits. Once you have wins collected, you're going to format that for AI. Then you're going to train your model. And then it comes down to testing and refining. So here's some real examples, and then I'll actually share with you my Claude project and show you what that looks like. I like Claude because it's an amazing copywriter, and I like GPT for research, more on point facts, SEO content, which is highly factual and informative, email writing. I find GPT is great for that, but Claude is the best copywriter in existence. Why? It understands empathy. Get that? A machine understands empathy. It's incredible. And that's why Claude is an amazing copywriter. It's the only AI built with something called constitutional AI, which is AI aligned for and with humanity, trained from humans, RHLF, reinforcement learning. So there's a very specific pattern only Claude has, and that's why it's a great copywriter. All right, back to the point. So a real example is if I want to create a successful data set for tweets to train my copywriter, my AI copywriter. I'm going to gather viral posts from influencers in my niche. I'm going to identify my top 3 or 4 favorite posts from that group. It doesn't have to be a lot of content. It just needs to be a few awesome pieces of content. In fact, less is better. 3 tweets that really hit Twitter and blew up are far better than 150 so-so tweets from all over Twitter. You want to train your data set when you upload content to your AI and say, hey, train on this data before creating the tweet I'm going to have you create. You're telling it to go study that content, and you want it to study the best, not the highest quantity. That's your training set, and that's how I've trained Claude. This gives you a daily copywriter you can go to every time. In fact, I have Claude installed on my phone, and I go to it, open it up, and that's my copywriter. So your best content or our training data, absolutely swipe it. That is your file for your training data. You're going to organize that. You're going to clean it up and structure it. Ours is already organized and already structured for you. And then you're going to add any context notes. Ours already has that as well. And that's where you just separate it out and you make sure it's named correctly. I'll show you that in the next minute. Here's a couple examples of training data format. So this is, of course, a tweet. The performance of this was 250,000 impressions between these 2 tweets alone. So they were high spikes on my Twitter analytics. They did really, really well, X analytics. And this is what the tweets were. Very short, condensed thoughts that were very powerful. That's what worked on X. Now, is this what will work next year? I don't know. I'm going to have to study the hits again and retrain my data set, right? So that's something you want to do is continue to monitor. If I publish this today, would it succeed? Yes, because I continue to test in this format and it continues to work. But that's something you want to keep an eye on as well. So it's quality over quantity. We've already talked about that. That's huge. And then context is king. You want to really train the AI with the right context and patterns. Successful patterns matter more than the actual posts. You'll get to see me recap the training data in a minute, so I'll share with you exactly what I mean by that. But before you train the AI, this is a very generic response that most people get when they're like, hey, write a tweet in the style of, and they name a famous author, and then they say, here's the topic and here's my thoughts, and they think they're doing a good job. They're not. First of all, AI is going to pull from all over the web whenever it looks at that author, and that might mean it might pull some complete fails from the web, complete fails for that author. And then you've just told it, go train on Julia McCoy's worst hits because it's training on a blog ranking at the top of Google. That is not at all how I write for Meta. But you didn't tell it to think differently, right? So there's so much fallacy in the way most people approach AI. And I want you to learn that the data set you train your AI on is everything. So I've got this thread in Claude that writes beautiful X posts every single time. Look at this. These 3 tweets are beautiful. They are specific to me, my thoughts, and in a style that's going to win on X because I've trained it on specific X data. Science has a hard stop. The greatest scientists admit the more we know, the less we realize we understand. That's where faith begins. That's beautiful. I did not write a word of that, but I thought thoughts like that. And so it's pulling from my thoughts because I've trained it on that as well. So you don't want to mix too many styles, and you don't want to train it on so-so content. You really got to train it on the hits. Context is king, and then you need to test. It's very important you don't just expect perfection out of AI the first time. So your first training set should be 3 top performing pieces, or use anything from our folder attached. Identify what made these top performing pieces work, be familiar with it, and then format these pieces for AI training. Success, when you've done this right, looks like AI capturing your unique voice, consistent quality outputs, and then faster content creation. You feel like you have an army of writers, but you didn't have to hire a single writer. And before we hit the next lesson, let me share with you the training data sets. We're going to go more in depth into this in lessons coming up, but I want to share with you what we've got. So we've got this, I believe it's a 47-page book that I did not write. This is some of the most viral posts in history, compiled by many other copywriters, used to train lots of little AI copywriters. It's pretty much public domain, right? Most of the internet content out there is, unless you're literally scraping and reposting someone else's post as yours, which we're not. We're not doing that. We're training an AI. So this is a 139-page viral training book containing some of the most viral content on the entire internet. And it's already formatted, meaning we've just made sure that we're not mixing formats, and we're numbering everything, and we've got it clearly written out. So if it was all one paragraph, you would want to break that up, right? You want it to have the style you would expect your AI to write in. Now you see this weird formatting, right? These slashes, that's normal because when you upload it to your Claude project, it actually inserts markup into your upload. So you can see, right, it's doing that. So whenever you upload these files, they will be already correctly formatted. Here's training data for high-performing YouTube headlines. We've written YouTube description. Here's our title, and here's our description. Here's number 2, title, description. So we're just clearly labeling the data, which is something important whenever you upload your data set. If you're gathering LinkedIn posts, you want to make sure they copy and paste cleanly, right? LinkedIn post number 1, we've copied and pasted it. It looks clean. It's even got my hashtags in there. Oh, that's a mess. That's a mess up, but it's probably okay because the way AI will read it is as a hashtag. So I don't think that matters. We've named our second post, pasted it, made sure the formatting is correct, and we're good to go. The X post, very similar. X post number 1, pasted it. X post number 2, pasted it. 3, pasted it. 4, pasted it. 5, 6, 7. So all in all, we've only got 9 X posts here. All right, so that's your training data set. Absolutely swipe it from our folder here, and whenever you upload it to your Claude Copywriter, which is simply just a project, you can see I've got my copywriting project. This is my copywriter that I use every single day. I've got this thread of X posts, and the way I add my ideas to it is I say, I was reading a book and I read we don't even use 10% of the sun's power. Write a post about this. Bam. Because I've trained it on how to be a great copywriter, right? That's key. That means I get output that is super dialed in, but I'm feeding it my original thoughts. And that is the other critical piece of this. All right, so let's hit up the next lesson and let's learn about the tools that make all this happen.